before Dee Dee? Anyway, it's called separation anxiety.
No!
Yeah.
I know.
Do I start?
No, you start.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sil Sylvain. The Dolls had just finished playing a week at Max's, and Connie got wind that they were supposed to go to LA for 6 days to play the Whiskey A Go-Go. Connie Grip supposedly was in the GTOs, which I don't believe. I just think she was this maniac who thought she was all things, but who was in nothing. She was just a big-mouthed talker. That's basically who she was. So she got mad at him. They were living on East 3rd Street and Avenue A. She said to him, "Hey, aren't you going to take me to California?" And Arthur said, "No, we aren't going to take none of our girlfriends. We don't have any money." So that night, when he's sleeping, she fucking stabs him in the thumb and gets him in the tendon.
Peter Jordan. Connie was one of these babes that would just smack you in the face, you know, even just joking around like, "Oh, that's funny," smack. She was a big fucking girl and could really booze up for fucking days. You'd be having a ball and then she'd fucking smack you in the head with a bottle because she called her a crybaby. You know, "Don't be a bimmy. You call me a bimmy, you big asshole." Smack. Arthur had a thing for tall girls. He always found these fucking enormous fucking tall girls, and the nuttier the better. He was very tall himself, maybe 6'2", and he liked to walk around at night. He'd roam through Times Square at 4 in the morning. He just loved roaming around the street, where he'd meet these enormous women. He had a knack for it. Arthur came up with a tremendous succession of Amazons. It was incredible. I couldn't believe that there were so many spaced out fucking chicks with dyed hair and torn black stockings in every city in the United States. Where did they come from? 1 million of them, all enormous and with similar characteristics. All about 6'1", could drink fucking whiskey out of the bottle, and be the kind of girls who would have a broken heel on their shoe. And Arthur would find them everywhere. Connie was one of them. She was pretty big. Big butt, big tits, big laugh. She was hooking at that point, so Connie was the kind of girl who'd carry a knife, because she was peddling her ass and probably needed one for protection. Also, she and Arthur were not the type of people to have a kitchen. So she didn't go to the fucking kitchen and get a knife out of the goddamn drawer. She had to have it fucking in her fucking bag.
Eileen Polk. Arthur told me that he woke up to find Connie kneeling on his chest with a knife in a kind of ritualistic position. It was like she had taken the knife and slit the part of his thumb that he needed to play the bass with. She didn't really cut his thumb off. So he woke up, saw what she was doing, and tried to grab the knife away. But she didn't try to cut his thumb off. She was going to do something weird to him with the knife, and he tried to stop her. She might have been play acting, because Arthur told me all these weird stories about those groupie girls. He told me about these 2 other girls, Ginny and Debbie. They were huge, both like 6 feet tall, and they would play dolls together. They would have tea parties. This was their little play acting routine. These groupies were like that. They thought it was fascinating to play out these roles, like an S&M role, or I'm going to be a witch for a week, or I'm going to get into S&M, or the tarot, or I'm going to play with Barbie dolls and pretend I'm 3 years old, or I'm going to have tea parties with my friends and drink opium instead of tea.
Dee Dee Ramone. All those girls that hung around those glitter bands at Max's were evil. All those girls worked in massage parlors, which were a thriving industry in New York at that time. You'd go in, supposedly to get a massage, but it was really for a hand job or a blow job, and all your girlfriends worked in massage parlors, massaging all day.
Eileen Polk. All these girls lived in fantasy worlds, and they could afford not to work because they were whores or strippers and made a lot of money. And the way they got these guys interested in them was by being weird, paying for all their drugs and paying their rent. And once one of these guys had one of these girls on his tail, he couldn't get away from her, because that was her profession, to follow you. If they were interested in a guy in a band, they had to make sure that they gave blowjobs to the security guards at every concert they played, and spent $300 on cab rides to follow the tour bus, and got plane tickets to California. Whatever it took. And that's the kind of girl Connie was. She would do whatever she needed to do to get what she wanted, including threatening people and beating them up and just being crazy.
Malcolm McLaren. The day after Connie attacked Arthur was absolutely horrific. But I wasn't shocked because I'd sensed the violence of New York already. People were too fucked up, and Arthur was an alcoholic and Connie was crazy. When I first got to New York, I was very naive, you've got to realize. I'd only had one girlfriend in my life. I never quite thought of that kind of jealousy. I was just learning to grow up. I had come to New York to seduce a girl, but when I got to New York, I didn't recognize her because she changed her face. She'd gotten plastic surgery. I mean, things like this were quite shocking to me. Here was a girl I was partly in love with, that I thought I knew, and when I came here, she didn't look the same. So no, I wasn't shocked by Connie stabbing Arthur. I wasn't even sad. I was just disappointed, that's the word. I was disappointed with the fact that much of their behavior was wasted energy. I didn't even think it had any philosophical purpose. It was a trashy energy, easily disposable energy, an energy that didn't quite bear any genuine point of view, except jealousy, which is so time-wasting.
Sylvain. Arthur called me up from Beth Israel Hospital and said, Sylvain, I was the first one he talked to. After that, I called David Johansen, then went straight to the hospital, and David met me. We said, what happened? What happened? But what was Arthur going to say? The doctor told me that it wasn't too bad. He just threw a couple stitches in and put a cast on him.
Peter Jordan. The dolls still had one more night to do at Max's, so we all immediately ran up to Lieber and Krebs, and Johnny Thunder says to me, well, you know all the fucking songs, why don't you play them? Lieber and Krebs asked me, can you do it? I said, of course I can do it. We rehearsed for 2 hours, and then I played the show.
Cern to Fox. Even after she tried to cut off his thumb, Connie still wanted to be with Arthur, and I think Arthur still wanted to be with Connie. I don't think he knew it was wrong. Syl was the one that told Arthur, no, she's got to go, she's horrible, look what she's done.
Bob Gruen. We walked into the lobby of the Continental Hyatt House, and there was at least a dozen groupies waiting for the dolls. I traveled with a lot of groups, with more well-known groups, like Alice Cooper, and they'd walk into the hotel, and there'd just be the desk clerk saying, fill out this form. But wherever the dolls went, there was a scene surrounding them. There would be people waiting for them. We'd go to Detroit, there'd be 30 people in the lobby, dressed like Dolls fans. The dolls had never been to LA, and there were all these people waiting for them in the lobby. Rodney Bingenheimer was there, and Sable Starr was there.
Nancy Spungen. The New York Dolls started a scene. They were the center of attention. Everything came after them. They were different. Nobody ever dressed the way they did, or talked the way they did, or played music the way they did. And they were the first band that I was hanging out with all the time. I slept with David Johansen, I slept with Johnny Thunders, I slept with Sylvain, I slept with Jerry Nolan, everybody but Arthur Kane.
Sable Stars. The dolls pull up in this limousine, and Johnny Thunders was the first to get out of the car. He had this red leather suit on, the one on the back of that first album cover. And I just knew something would happen with Johnny. And it did. He asked me to stay the night, and the next day started laying all this heavy shit on me. I really like you. I mean, I really care about you. I mean, I like you. I love you. Will you marry me? Will you come back to New York and live with me?
Peter Jordan. Johnny and Sable's eyes met, their loins locked, and they spent quite a bit of time together. I think Sable was quite surprised that Johnny was so intensely and passionately interested in her, as opposed to just screwing her and kicking her out of the room. At that time, Johnny had been going out with Cindy Lang, who was Alice Cooper's girlfriend. Cindy was living with Alice, but he was never in town. He was always on tour, making money. So Cindy used to come to see Johnny all the time. It was not that uncommon, you know, these things happen, as they say. I think Sable's big romance previous to Johnny had been some schmuck from Led Zeppelin or something, who probably pissed on her, you know, literally. So I think Sable was surprised that Johnny wanted to be so intensely involved.
Sable